So hi, I'm Zimbiri. I'm an artist. I'm 25 years old and I'm proud to be part of the series of celebrating Bhutanese women. I think I've always sort of painted as a kid, in school when you have these things, and I only really considered taking it up as a profession when I was in college. I think just my whole family is very creative, and the environment that I come from with my uncles and aunt, and especially my grandfather and my aunt, they were artists, and so they definitely had a huge influence on me. But I think that it's also just the whole environment that I am in. My family, my mom, my dad, they've all been very creative. It started off as something that I would just do in my spare time, but I think now I'm definitely considering going full-time. I work part-time as a Zimbra marketing food director, and I also paint. I love sports, and more specifically, I guess basketball and boxing are two things that I really enjoy doing in my spare time. My family was really, really supportive in my pursuit of art. I think that if it weren't for them, I wouldn't be taking art so seriously. My parents especially, when I was in college, they really encouraged me to sort of pursue my passion. And I think that I've been so privileged that way to have parents who are so encouraging in giving me the opportunity to pursue what I love. What I try and portray in my art is something that I feel, or these different ideas that I have, or social issues that I think are important to me. It's sort of, I try and find something that I'm curious about, things that I find are important to me. And it's sort of a self-expression of the things that I see, of the questions that I have. It's an exploration of ideas that I see and think about. For my exhibitions, I concentrate more on certain ideas, and I try and push it and explore it more. I double majored in economics and studio art at Bhutan College. I guess the boundaries of art are constantly being pushed, and so I was lucky to be able to sort of see these two extremes of art, where in Bhutan, where we have like a very structured art, and where it's more preserved and it's passed on from centuries, where there's very little change in what the art is. And then having the West, where people are constantly trying to do things that have never been done before, and this idea of pushing the boundaries of what art is. I think I've been very lucky to be able to experience it, not just in college, but in the cities and outside, and the whole experience.
Zimbiri, you have studied fine arts abroad, it seems. Tell us about your experience there.
I think that having studied in the West, I was given a unique opportunity to be able to see how art and culture is in the West, as well as having grown up here. You experience it through going to the lahagas and monasteries. And I think that in the West, art is a little bit different to how things are here, at least traditionally. I think that in the West, they're constantly trying to sort of push the boundaries of what they think art is, and trying to constantly be innovating and moving past the boundaries. Whereas in Bhutan, it's the traditional arts is very, I guess, strict in what is allowed and what is not allowed, and the iconography is always repeated and done in the exact same way, which has helped preserve our culture. And I think that, again, being lucky enough to have experienced both, I've been able to sort of maybe try and find a balance between the two, and at least that's what I try to do, is to sort of take our arts and what I've experienced growing up and sort of have like a Western spin on it, I guess.
You have done solo exhibitions abroad and in Bhutan as well. So tell us about your exhibitions.
Well, I had my first solo exhibition last year in August at the Royal Textile Academy. And it was very exciting for me and nerve-wracking, because it's my first time not just having a solo exhibition, but having one in Bhutan. And I think that I was really excited about it because it's I've always had my exhibitions in college and school outside, but it meant a lot more to me because of having grown up here and seeing what the Bhutanese audience would say about my work. I think that I was really excited how well received it was. The one in Hyderabad was slightly more nerve-wracking because of the Bhutanese imagery that I used, the Mahayana mask. And I thought that because it was abroad, people wouldn't be able to connect to it as easily as the Bhutanese audience was. Surprisingly, again, I was really happy to see that people were able to connect with the message that I was trying to express through my art.
We can see like 3 of your paintings here. It seems like in most of your paintings you have this mask aspect in them. Tell us more about it.
So I think there are sort of 2 parts to this answer with my obsession with these masks. For the exhibition, it was a little bit different. The masks represented this protective layer that we sort of have in society, and how while we interact with different groups, we sort of take on different personalities and personas, the different masks we wear. And I think that it was my exploration of this idea that people wear masks in order to protect themselves. And it's not something that's bad or good. It's sort of just this necessity that's come up from living in a society where we have to interact with so many different groups of people. I think more specifically, my fascination for the wrathful Mahayana mask is this idea that a god that's normally supposed to be serene and beautiful has sort of abandoned their serenity and beauty to protect you. And I think that that's sort of like this ultimate show of love. And so that's what it represents to me personally, and why it's specifically the Mahayana mask that I'm constantly using.
How different are Bhutanese when it comes to paintings from the West?
I think when I was painting, I found that I had to be more aware of the Bhutanese audience. And it was an interesting experience because sometimes I would paint something and my parents would come in and they were very concerned with how it would be taken. And it was something that I really never had to sort of concern myself with when I was in college in the West. I guess because, again, like I said, people there are constantly trying to push their boundaries and trying to see how far they can push the envelope. So it was quite the opposite reaction that I used to get. Whereas over there, they would sort of like push it and take it more. Whereas in Bhutan, I sort of had to rein it in and make it still have it relatable to the Bhutanese audience. Because I think that right now, art is largely limited to the canvas or the more traditional forms of art. And so it was interesting because I had to sort of have these parameters, and I guess it helped me push sort of more in trying to be creative within those boundaries. I think that when I had my exhibition in Hyderabad, that was one of the concerns I had, is that Bhutanese people have grown up seeing the Mahayana mask, and so as soon as you see it, you're able to relate to it and sort of maybe even have experienced the things that I did when I was growing up as a kid, seeing these really imposing figures with these scary masks as you're walking through one of the dark corridors in the Lagas. But a country that didn't have that in their culture, it wouldn't evoke the same feelings or the same sense of, or the same connections, I guess. But surprisingly, I was pleasantly surprised to find that they were actually able to see these masks. And I mean, I think it took some time I had to communicate with them on what the idea behind it was. But when I did, they were able to understand and connect with the imagery and the art and the meaning of it.
And as a contemporary artist yourself, how do you find Bhutanese art?
Oh, I love it. I think it's amazing, the amount of dedication and the discipline required to sort of create the works of art that we have. I think it's beautiful. I mean, I've been very tempted to sort of join one of the classes and see if I can take on the traditional arts as well.
As an independent and contemporary artist, what are the basic challenges you face?
I think that being in Bhutan, one of the challenges we face is, one of the more practical challenges we face is the supply of art. Like, to get the physical paint and the canvas is very difficult. And not just that, but I think that when I'm abroad and I go to these art supply stores, you're able to pick out smaller things and sort of experiment with it. And I think that's something that maybe is one of the reasons why Bhutanese art, or at least contemporary art right now, is very limited to sort of just canvas and paint because it's so difficult to get other supplies. I think some of the other challenges we face is being in Bhutan right now as a contemporary artist. It's so new to our community and society that we're unsure of which way we're supposed to go or how we're supposed to do things because we've sort of jumped into this world where art is gone from tradition to contemporary, and there's been no like in the West, for example, you've sort of progressed from traditional and it's sort of taken all these steps to come to where it is. Whereas Bhutan, I think we've sort of gone from the beginning to the end. And I think that's something that we're learning to adapt to. And I think that it creates a unique opportunity for us because we're able to be Bhutanese and have these traditional arts and to be able to sort of use that and sort of try and mix it in with this contemporary world we have, and to have so much of the original of the traditional arts is really great. But I think it also limits us in a lot of ways because we're not sure, we haven't had people come before us and sort of led the way. We have to sort of, I guess, develop our own idea of what contemporary art is in Bhutan. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges we face.
What are the materials you use for painting? I believe you used marker pen as well.
Yes, I think that's one of the things that I find really frustrating is that I love to experiment with different ways, different techniques, and I guess maybe that's an advantage too because in Bhutan we have such limited art supplies in the country that you sort of have to push on what is considered or what you can and can't use. So, I tend to use more acrylics. And again, like I said, experimenting with marker pens. And I've actually, for a lot of my paintings, for the Faces exhibition, I've used this method where I use brushes and scrubs to sort of remove the paint. So it's almost like a reductive method of painting.
And how can this generation help preserve or enhance our art?
I think that already so much is being done. His Majesty sort of set us off on this journey with preserving our culture and our traditional arts. And I think that the government's sort of taken over with that. And I think that growing up and having seen that and having experienced it, I think that it's sort of like would come naturally, hopefully will come naturally to us to do that.
Generally it is said that Bhutanese art, culture, it's stagnant. So what's your view on this?
Well, I think that it's important that our traditional arts have been, I don't know if you'd call it stagnant, but preserved. Because it's allowed for so much of our culture to be preserved. And I think that along with that, if we're able to sort of have like a parallel of contemporary art, where artists are sort of trying to discover new ways and new ideas and sort of have that on the canvas, or not on the canvas, and still have our traditional arts preserved. I think that's really important, especially for our culture and being from Bhutan.
And generally it is known that men artists, they are more popular. What's your view on this?
I think traditionally that's true, but I think that has more to do with our roles in society. I think that traditionally the painter has been a male-dominated role, and it's sort of just carried on from that. But now I think, having seen, we've had these women's exhibitions. VAST has been having women's exhibitions. We can see that there's a lot of female artists as well. Maybe they haven't pursued it enough, but I think that it's definitely starting to come up.
Your personal view, how does art contribute to society and humanity in general?
I think that art plays a huge role. I think that it plays a visual history. It plays a role for a visual history. It tells people what was important during the time, what society considered beautiful, what society thought was important. I think that it also helps create a platform for dialogue. And it can be anything, the environment, society, politics. And I think art creates sort of like this visual expression where people sort of present an idea to whoever they're showing the art to. And it sort of gives people a different point of view so that they can see things from somebody else's perspective, and maybe it helps them think about new things and ideas and challenges their views on what they think is normal or their idea of beauty. So I think art plays a huge role. It's really strange. When I was younger, I wasn't a very good artist. I find it so weird when people tell me, oh, you're so talented. I was like, you should have seen me when I was a kid. I couldn't draw stick figures, you know? But I think it's something that I was just always very passionate about, you know? It's something that I thought was to take something that comes from your head and to be able to express it to people. And not just that, but to have ideas in your head and make it a visual and help people. I think sometimes when it's written or when it's when you talk to people about it, it's more difficult to sort of express your idea. Whereas when it's a visual, it's sort of, it's more interesting. Yes. It creates more of an impact. And I think that that's what fascinated me about art, you know? It's, and I think that that's what I love about contemporary art, is that it's moved past this decorative phase where it's not just a pretty painting, but it holds some meaning behind it, or it sort of, there's like a meaning, a message, an idea. It challenges you to think and push, you know? And I think that, again, not been able to paint and draw when I was a kid, and to sort of practicing and really developing that skill, and now seeing where I'm able to sort of get what's in my head out onto a canvas is very exciting for me.
What will be your advice to all aspiring artists in Bhutan?
I guess, I think that you have to be very passionate about art if you want to pursue it, because it's not easy. I think that being a Bhutanese artist gives us a very, very unique, and we're very lucky that, you know, it's just starting up. So everything that we do is sort of new, and it's exciting for people outside the world because, I mean, we already have such a good brand as being a Bhutanese, you know, the land of happiness. Mm-hmm. And I think that for them to see art coming from Bhutan, it's very exciting for them. And so it gives us sort of this unique niche in the market. But in that same way, I think that it's quite it's nerve-wracking because you have to carve a new path. It's like we're pioneers in Bhutanese art. And so whatever we do is something that has not been done before. So it's, again, good and bad, because it's difficult to sort of have to carve your own path and figure out where it is you have to go, who you have to talk to, and all the technical aspects. But I think that if you really do love it, you have to keep at it, not stop.
Zimbiri, thank you very much for your time and sharing your insight with us.
Thank you so much.